Do you have those things on your to-do list that you just never really quite get around to? They may be things that you don't really have time to get to, maybe things you don't really know how to do, or it may be things you honestly just don't like to do that much. So they just kind of languish there on your list and you just never really quite get to them. Or when you do, you're just dreading every moment of it. Well, today I have a special guest who's going to help you with that. It may just be the answer to a prayer that you've been having. She works with virtual assistants, and she works both from the side of someone who may want to be a virtual assistant and provides training, and she also works with people who use virtual assistants. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, yeah, that's great for somebody who's in business, and I'm not. But whether you are or not, a virtual assistant may be exactly what you need, or it may be the answer to someone else's prayer that you might be able to make a suggestion that they listen in. Alyssa Avant is my guest today, and I think you're really going to like some of the solutions that she provides for you today. So I hope you'll listen in and keep your mind open to the possibilities of what a virtual assistant might be able to do for you. Thanks for stopping by today. I'm excited to have you here. Welcome to Longing for More, where Christians come to strengthen their faith, revive their soul, and learn to live their lives with a sense of fulfillment and peace. Listen each week to learn how to incorporate your faith into your daily activities, stop wandering through life feeling empty and unfulfilled, and begin to live your more. Let's get started. My guest today is Alyssa Avant, and I am so excited to have her here today. Welcome, Alyssa, and thank you for coming today. I'm just so excited to hear what you have to share with us. To get started, I would love it if you would just introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. So I am a virtual assistant and a virtual assistant coach, and I have a directory that is full of Christian virtual assistants who come alongside Christian business owners and bloggers and ministry leaders to help provide support in a variety of areas. All VAs have an area, most of them have an area of expertise that they provide, anything from web design to graphic design to helping you with your administrative task, even to podcasting, something like this. There are VAs that specialize in a variety of skills and services. And so those are in the directory. This directory is 1 year old now. I'm really excited about that. We've been around a year. It's called the Christian Business Advantage. And I also am a podcaster. We were talking about that before we started recording that, and I've had a podcast since August of last year. It's called the Virtual Assistant Advantage, and it is for virtual assistants and those who work with them, those who choose to hire a VA. And so I've been doing that for a few months and really enjoying being a podcaster myself. And then, of course, all those things come second to being a wife and a mom. I have 3 almost teenagers, I say, because I have a 17-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 12-year-old who will be 13 this coming summer. So it's never a dull moment with our family, and always busy and crazy with teenagers. So, but I enjoy the teenage stage. I have nieces and nephews that are babies and toddlers, and I'm enjoying the teenage stage. I like to visit with those little ones.
Let's just take a pause there and celebrate. Man, you've got a lot going on. Congratulations with the 1 year anniversary, the business, and congratulations with the podcast. I know for a fact that it's a commitment. You really have to be committed to doing a podcast. So I think that's amazing. I love the work that you're doing, and it's really important. We're going to dive into that more too. But it's also, I just want to acknowledge, I would have never guessed that you would have 3 teenagers. You look way too young to have a 17-year-old. So that's really awesome. It's funny because when my son was growing up, I loved every stage, and I always thought, I kind of dreaded that next one because I knew it just wasn't going to be as great. And I was wrong. Every stage is more amazing. He's 35 now, and tell you what, now we got grandbabies, and that's even more amazing. So that's cool. Thanks for sharing all of that. That's really beautiful. So We're here today talking about your business with providing coaching and virtual assistance to folks. And as I mentioned to you when we talked about getting together on the call today, not all of my listeners are necessarily coaches or entrepreneurs even. A lot of them, are working in the work world, but then they are also probably volunteering in their church or whatever. And what I want to do is, most of us think of a virtual assistant. And I actually, folks, I just want you to know I hired one of Alyssa's virtual assistants, and she is amazing. I just was so blessed to have her. And to be honest with you, she has actually moved on to a more permanent role in a different situation. And so I'm not working with her. That's just brand new within the last few weeks. So I'm not working with her right now, but she was incredible. And it was really amazing to have someone who understood the message that I'm trying to get across in the world and was willing to not only, carry out that vision that I had for my business, but that also was, I mean, she was very good at the marketing and the things like that. So she definitely complemented some of the skill sets that I had. So I am all about the virtual assistants, and I applaud you for what you're doing because it's really important. So let's talk a little bit about that. Before we get into what it might look like for somebody, and we're actually going to do a master class on this to do more of kind of a training on hiring a virtual assistant. So I don't want to go too that deep into the 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 nuts and bolts of it, but I want to give people an idea of what it is so that they want to come and listen to our master class. So
Right.
so what are some ways that people might use a virtual assistant if they aren't a business owner?
Well, that is what's interesting is that I think more and more people, especially in today's world where a lot of people are having to work from home or kind of do a little bit of both, or they're having to deal with their children on being virtual school and things like that. There are things that you don't get to. So maybe there are ways that you could have a VA to help you with those things that you've dropped. Maybe it's like scheduling your bills to be paid, bill paying services and things like that. Because a lot of us have that ability through our banks or through different people that we work with, but they're they don't have the time to actually sit down and just do that. So scheduling that type of thing out. Also, coordinating your events and calendars to where you don't miss some of the things that are going on. I know if I had someone to help me figure out when all my kids' stuff was due, that would be very, very helpful, because when you have, more than one child and they're dealing with this virtual world and they have sports and different things going on, then that can be overwhelming. And if you had someone to help coordinate that and set reminders for you, things like that, that is helpful. Also, like the correspondence, there's correspondence that you might have to do within to your teachers or your children's teachers or to other people in your life that maybe it is related to your job, even, but dealing with all the correspondence that comes across. Email management is huge because I have more than one email address, and I think most people in this day and age do. So I have a business email address, and then I have a personal email address, and so all those things, it can get kind of hairy. And so even hiring someone to help you manage your email, it would be huge. It would save you a ton of time. And even if you do that for like a one-time project, say I'm overwhelmed with my email and I need someone to clean it out for me and get me back on the right track, unsubscribe from all these things that I'm obviously not using. That would even be helpful to just like a one-time project of doing something like that, or helping you to create a plan for maybe your next vacation or your next maybe you are trying to remodel your house or whatever it is. There's so many things that they can do awesome job at, like researching things and knowing how to handle projects and plans. There are people that that is their niche, that is their expertise, and they can help you with that. Organizing is another one. Yesterday I have a Facebook group for VAs, and yesterday in the group, I asked, what is your area of expertise, or not necessarily expertise, but what is your greatest skill? Like, what are you different from everybody else? What sets you apart? And I had a lot of people say organization, being able to help organize and plan. And so a lot of times that's not a knack or skill that we all have as individuals. And so there's probably someone who feels unorganized that can have a VA come alongside of them and help to them to organize their life in a way that maybe, just having that fresh set of eyes from the outside could be beneficial to you. So those are just a few things.
Those are great ideas. Man, there are several ideas on there that I could use. I certainly could use help with my emails and just the organization. Wow, there's some really great tips in there. And those are ideas that anybody can use. What I love about it, I may not be good at some of those things, and I can hire somebody to fill in the gaps. I don't have to beat myself up about not being good about that. I can just find somebody to help me. And it doesn't have to be uh, a huge project. It doesn't have to be ongoing. In fact,
Right.
yeah, what I loved is when I was working with my virtual assistant, I think we were doing like an hour a week or something. I mean, it was nominal. With
Yeah.
me, we would build on it maybe later. But she was amazing and got a lot done in that time frame for me each week. So I really encourage people to think hard about how, it's all about using our time the best we can. And if we can hire other people, in fact, I've taken tons of business courses and things like that. And they say one of the first things to do is to hire somebody to get those things off of your plate to allow you to work on the things that you do best, right?
Yes, absolutely. To focus on your strengths instead of your weaknesses and your area of expertise, because, I mean, you might can do those things, but should you be spending your time there? Where is the best return on your investment of your time? People think about investing as money almost all the time, but you're investing time. And if you can free up an hour of your time and you're paying somebody less than what you charge on an hourly rate for something, then you are getting a great return on that investment. Or, if you can just free up an hour of time as a mom, or a husband, even dad, I mean, you could free up that time that you could spend instead of paying your bills or scheduling your bills to go out or managing your email or whatever at night with your kids. You could pay somebody to do that and then have that extra hour of time to spend with your family. So it's huge. I mean, it's a real great return on your investment there.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. So let's kind of pull away from that conversation. Now we've kind of given them some ideas of some things that might work for them. I really am curious to know, how did you get into this business? What prompted you to, first of all, say I want to be a VA, and then second of all, say, oh, you know what, I see a need out here, and I need to help others hone those skills or get better at that.
Well, the first question is actually, I didn't say I want to be a VA because I didn't even know that's what I was doing. So it is kind of a funny story. So this goes back a ways. I am a mom of teenagers, and like you were surprised. But 13 years ago, it's almost 14 because my daughter will be 14 in March, and my business was born the year she was born. I had a preschooler and was a newborn basically. And so I was in ministry. I did youth and children's ministry for 5.5 years. That was my first real job outside of college. And I started during my senior year in college. And I was married. I wasn't a typical college student, but I was married in my early 20s and working, outside the home. And we were about to have our second child. And I knew that it was difficult at that point to manage youth ministry and two kids. And so I didn't think that I could handle that with well, it was difficult with one child. I was thinking 2 kids, this is going to be a little bit too overwhelming. And so I had decided that I thought I needed to come home and I needed to make an income of some type. And so I began to do some research and look for ways that I could do that. And I had just at that time started a mom blog and was blogging for the fun of it to kind of journal these things that were happening in my life, that I was a new mom and, mom of two. And just, I was just wanting to do this for fun, to have a little hobby. And I had joined what was I consider now an old school forum. So kind of like a Facebook group, but back then it was just these forums. And it was for moms who wanted to work from home or moms who were working from home. It was a work at home mom kind of forum. And I went in there and I asked what I could do as as a stay at home mom to make some income. And you know how at the bottom you can have like a signature line about you, and I had put my name and my blog down there because everybody was putting their website or whatever, and I didn't have one. I just had this blog. So I had put that down there. And so one of the ladies, before she reached out to me, went to my blog and she read some of my articles and, just little blog posts that I had written about being a mom. And she reached out to me because she had a website for moms and needed somebody to write some articles for her and some blog posts. And so she hired me to write blog posts for her and articles because back then, one of the ways that people marketed their business was through article marketing. And there were these websites where you could submit these articles and then people would pick them up to go in newsletters and magazines and different things. And so I would write blogs and articles for her, and it was as if she had written them. So she put her name on them, but I wrote them. And I started out doing that for like a price per article, basically. And so that's what she had me do. And then I created another website, basically another blog, because back then, that was what I knew how to do. I created this WordPress website and I called it a writerforhire.com. That was the name of it. And for 3 years, I wrote articles and blogs for people. And that was my first way of making income online. And I didn't even know what a VA was at that point. I knew that I was ghostwriting articles. And I have always been a writer. Like I took creative writing in college twice. When I found out I could do it twice, I was excited because I really liked the teacher. And I really enjoyed writing. And so when she said, "Hey, Alicia, you can take this another semester and get credit," I said, "Yes, sign me up," because I love to write. And that was kind of, this was encouraging to me that I was actually using something, from those days in college. And so I did that for 3 years and I kind of got what I would call burnout because I had been writing so much for all these people on different topics. I laugh and say, somebody asked the other day, what was the funniest thing or the, oddest thing I ever wrote about? And I would say men's eyeglasses. Like I wrote articles to help sell men's eyeglasses. It was really strange. So everything from being a mom to men's eyeglasses. And at that point, I kind of got burnout. It was about 3 years in, 3 or 4, give or take. And I decided I needed to look for other ways to make money and how I could add to this business that I had. And so I went to my very first conference, like in-person conference, like you and I met at an in-person conference. And I went to this conference and just kind of listened to what other people were needing and wanting to outsource, and came home and decided that I would start adding websites and social media to my expertise because I had taught myself how to create WordPress websites basically out of the fact that I didn't have the money to pay anybody and I needed a website. So I had learned that. And I had taught myself social media because that was the way that I advertised my business. And so those were the two services that I added. And that is when my business kind of morphed from being a ghostwriting business to being a virtual assistant business. And so I kind of changed or transitioned into that. And over those years that I've had my business, I have dropped certain services and added others. And I've also niched down to where I work with a specific group of people because I still have clients myself. And I mainly work with authors and speakers at this point. I've worked with every type of person you can really imagine over the years, but I always tell VAs to kind of niche down into something that they enjoy doing, because you can do certain tasks, but do something. If you're going to be in business for yourself, do something you actually enjoy doing. And so I enjoy working with authors and speakers. I enjoy working with people in ministry and that have different passions and gifts. And so that's where I've kind of moved to and kind of found my place, working with those types of people. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, changed a lot over the years. And then you also ask about how I began to help others to become a VA. What I noticed is that people would ask me all the time, well, how did you get started, and how did you do this? Because there's a lot of people who want to stay at home and be with their kids, which is my why. That was my first reason. I tell people my first goal was to make diaper money. That was what I needed to make. I had two little bitty children, and in fact, I had my third. Well, I found out when I was when my daughter was 8 months old, that I was pregnant again. And so I have a 12 and a 13-year-old. They're 16 months apart. So we had a lot of diapers during that time period in my life.
Well, that
And so I found other ladies that's what they needed to do. They needed to make diaper money. And so it was about the time that I swapped my business, and kind of morphed my business, that I realized that, hey, there's other people that want to do this. And I started an internship program and began to have ladies to help me in my business. And I would teach them the ropes. And I did that for several years, about 3 years. In fact, I would do one person at a time, and I would have them on for about 3 to 6 months. They would work with me. I would teach them the ropes, and then they would start their own business. And then it was about 3 years into that I decided, hey, I would really like to be able to do this on a larger scale, and not just one person at a time. So I created a course that teaches people how to become a virtual assistant. And that is when I created the Become a Virtual Assistant course. And it is a do it yourself. You kind of walk yourself through it. It has, modules that you go through, and worksheets and things to do, and all that sort of thing. And I did that as a way to reach more people. And that's when, I started the reason I started the directory is it had been several years since I started the course. That was in 2015. And in the end of 2019, I was at a point in my business where I couldn't take on any more clients, but I still had people coming to me to hire someone. They wanted to hire me, or they wanted to hire somebody. And I needed a way to give other people basically to have someone to refer those people to. And I knew that I wanted to have people that I could trust and that I knew were, worthy of me giving them this person. Can you do what you say you're going to do? Do you have honesty and integrity in your business? Do you have a professional way that you go about doing business? And so I decided that I would reach out to the ladies who I had trained in the past and say, would you be interested in being a part of a directory where I send you referrals for a small fee? You would be a part of this directory. And started out with those that I had trained, some of which still needed clients, but a majority of those ladies didn't need clients. So that was when I was like, well, what do I do now? I don't have enough people to create this directory. That was my issue last January when I was creating it. So I put out a poll, just asking people if they would be interested in joining. And I created what I call a vetting process, by which I have these ladies, they come to me and I get to know them. I ask for their referrals. I, learn about them through their website, and I interview them, and I go through this process of basically vetting them to say, yes, this person has the skills, they have a professional business, they have, a set of systems in place to onboard their clients and to make sure that they're being able to provide high quality services. And so that's where I was able to add some more people to the directory that way. And that's why I started that. That is a way to have have people, a pool of VAs that I could refer people to. And it has been such a good experience. I have been able to, it's so exciting when you're able to give somebody someone to work with, to connect those two people. And like I connected you with your VA and I've done with other people. And it's a rewarding thing to do because, that's just another way to help people. And that's what I enjoy doing. People ask me what my mission is, and my mission is to serve God and serve others well. That is my, kind of my mission. And that has, this is just another layer in my business that's allowed me to do that.
What an incredible story. And I just love how, even though you didn't say so, it sounds to me like you took the first step that God asked you to take, and then you took the next step, and you took the next step. You didn't come into this with this plan that I'm going to create this whole business with all of these people. And I mean, it just happened organically and
Yeah,
very
very much.
beautifully. So I love that. And what occurred to me as you were talking is that it doesn't need to be entrepreneurs and it doesn't need to be, people who are working from home. I, as a government employee, could have used your services at different times along the way to help me with maybe a conference or writing, correspondence to the people that I work with. Or, I mean, there's so many different things that it can be used for. So I like the idea of being really open-minded about where someone might be able to help. In today's world, way back when I started in the business, I remember working for a company in Houston, and we hired a temp to come in and help with some of our encoding and different things like that. And what's so cool is basically that's what this is all about. It's being able to hire a temp, but you don't
Hmm.
have to be in the same physical location. You can do it from anywhere. And
Right, absolutely. People can work from anywhere, and they can, you cut out some of the problems that you get when you're trying to hire somebody, because that way they don't have to commute, you don't have to provide them benefits, you don't have to have a desk, all this,
right,
or
right.
all this stuff. You cut out all of that. And you know, for example, here's an example of working with the local business. So I, for the first few years, never worked with anybody locally. I never met any of my clients. They were, all over the country and different things. But as of the past few years, I've actually worked more with some local businesses. For example, I worked with a bank for a little while. The bank was growing and expanding. They were making they had new locations that they had, different branches, and they wanted to share with our general area within so many miles of this area that they were, expanding, and that there were new locations and that sort of thing. And so I helped them create a Facebook campaign and a radio campaign, which I knew nothing about radio, but it was very easy just to call the stations, learn about their packages, that sort of thing. So we did a Facebook and radio campaign, and they also did TV, but I just didn't handle that piece, and helped them to get the word out that they had all these new locations for their bank. And it was a really good experience. It was super neat to work with someone local. So yeah, there's all kinds of things that you can do, and that people can provide services for. So I can see where, to me, I've always shared that um, if you have a skill that is related in any way to any of the things we've talked about, then that is a marketable skill that you can share with someone else, and that someone will, exchange payment for, because there are so many things that you can do with this business. So I encourage anybody that, on that end, that's looking to make an income, to look for ways that you could do that with somebody in your area, or even, offering it online as I did.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And I think that what I'd like to do now is shift our conversation a little bit, because I want to save some material for our conversation. We're having a master class on March 25th, that's combined with my Living Your More mastermind. Got to make sure I get my words out here right. The mastermind is ongoing, and we bring in professionals, teaching opportunities and things. And Alyssa's going to join us for that. And rather than just have the people that are currently in the mastermind, we're making it available as a master class to the public. And so, if you have questions or whatever, I hope that you'll join us for that. If you just want to learn more about either becoming a virtual assistant or using a virtual assistant, we'll go into that more at that time. And I'll plug in a link to how to register for that class in the show notes and all of that. But what I'd like to do is focus on, the whole faith perspective. And there right now in the world, there's so many things that are going on, and it's easy to get discouraged. You turn on the news, and I don't anymore hardly. I try and catch the weather, and that's about it. The reason I bring that up is that I think it's important for those of us who are believers to work together and associate with people who understand that we get our source, we get our everything from our Lord. And so how do you tie that into your business, if I can?
Well, people ask if you have to have a Christian business, like if you have to have that as a part of your business just because you're a Christian. And not everybody does that. That's not something everybody does. But to me, there was no question of whether I would do that or not, because it is such a huge part of my life. And in fact, it brings up the idea that, the reason or the way that I started my business was this huge leap of faith, is what I call it. And I actually wrote a book about that called Faith Leaps. Um, and so I have always had my faith as a part of my business. It is one and the same, and it's meshed together. There's no separating those two things. I can't compartmentalize my business and my faith. It's just impossible for me. So it's always been a part
It
of my
didn't work.
Yeah, it would not work for me. That does not work. Even when I worked outside the home for a short period of time in the middle of this, when I got burnt out, I did go get a 9 to 5 job, or actually it was 7 to 3, because I taught school for 3 years, and did my business part time. It was, I luckily taught at a Christian school, because otherwise I would have been lost without being able to tell the kids, I'm praying for you or whatever. So, but it's just such a big part of who I am that it's a part of my business as well. So I am very blessed that my clients pray for me, and I'm able to pray for my clients. I'm very blessed that part of what I do often includes Bible studies, or God's word, creating graphics with Bible verses and things like that, and all of that type of thing. But I make decisions based on prayer and study and guidance. And it's not something that I take lightly. And so, I have seen God's hand in this business from day one. It was very much a leap of faith to start it and to say, okay, I'm going to trust and rely that the Lord is going to provide for me and my family. And that has been a roller coaster sometimes. I used to have a lot of anxiety around that, and God has brought me through that. And I've learned how to deal with anxiety and overcome it. That is something I probably need to write a book on because it's been such a huge deal for me. I've dealt with anxiety and fear surrounding, lots of things in my life, but in my adult life, it's been around the topics of, provision and lack, and just, fears around money. And so that has been where I've had to rely on God, but He has never, ever, not provided what our family needs. And, throughout those years, I've started making money for diapers and then for groceries. And then, I pay my children attend a private Christian school, and I pay their tuition. And so it has, God has provided each step along the way of being able to do that. And so it's just a huge part of who I am and what my business is. I enjoy working with other Christians because I'm able to get behind and support what they do. So I feel like I have a part when they are writing a book that will help people to deal with, losing a child. I had a client at one point that she had actually lost two children. One was killed and one was through through miscarriage. And so she wrote and shared about her story, and that was her, her ministry. And so being able to come alongside people like that and lots of others over the years, that's just one good example, is a way that I feel like, to me, my business, it's a business. Yes, it makes an income, but it's also a ministry because it allows me to serve other people and to help them serve others in their own unique, way.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. Has there been a time in your life when you truly felt that your soul was longing for more? And there's always that, but what we eventually realize is that we're looking for everything, but we realize that it's really Jesus in our life that we're longing for. Can you think of a time when you've had that longing?
Absolutely. I've referenced this time several times. When I got so burnt out in my business, I felt like I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. And I felt like there was something else that I was supposed to do. And the funny thing is that I went and got the job outside the home. And I knew the minute I stepped into that classroom and dealt with those kids for the first few weeks, I had made a mistake. That was not what I was supposed to do. But I felt like, if I do this and have this steady paycheck and all this stuff, then this is what I'm supposed to do. And this will help deal with this longing that I had or whatever. And I learned that, that was not the case. I was trying to fix it myself instead of allowing God to fix it. I had to stay stuck there for a little while before, and it was like really hard, to have to. You had to basically you had to stay in this bed that you've made. You make that little phrase. If you make the bed, you got to stay there or whatever. And I had made this decision, and my husband and I, had talked about it, and he really wanted me to stick it out and give it a go. And I had to do that for a little while. And so I learned that if I am not relying on God and I'm trying to do it myself, that I do long for things that, obviously, for longing for things that I think I need or whatever, that it's really not the case. I just need to keep focused and keep my eyes in the right direction and on Him. And that's hard to do sometimes. I know that I have struggled with that. I used to call it like, basically, I was being discontent and I was looking for contentment. And if you're looking for contentment anywhere but with Jesus, then you're not going to find it. So that is something I had to learn for sure.
Yeah, I've had to learn that lesson a couple of times too. And one a couple of things, you hit it right on the head. It is, and I read this last week and was like, oh yeah, and basically it's that tendency to want to fix things, and truly we just need to let Jesus do that. The other thing that I've noticed in myself when I jump into those situations where I get into something I probably shouldn't be in is a search for affirmation. It's like, oh wow, they offered me that, so that feels so good. And how do you say no to something like that? And just because it sounds really great doesn't necessarily mean it may be really great, but it may not be what God's purpose for you is at that time. But if there's money attached or anything like that, there's just so many ways that we can get tangled up into things that aren't really meant to be ours. Fortunately, God gives us the opportunity to correct that, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and that was very much the case, because I actually have a master's degree, and so in the world's view of things, in my mind, I was like, I'm not using this degree that I spent all this time and money on, so I need to do something else. And so that something was, going to teach school, because hey, that means I'm using this worldly piece of paper that's hanging over here on the wall, or
Right?
whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was the case for me. Is I felt like, one, I would have this steady paycheck, and two, I would be using this degree that I thought I needed to use. So that was very much the reason why I sought out that and that I'd gotten, sort of burn out in my business at the time. So absolutely. And you'd be surprised since then how many times I've been tempted by, getting an outside the home job or doing something different and realize that that's what I was doing, is seeking that affirmation that, I'm worthy of that job or whatever. And God has closed the door so many times, or I've had to say no to it because I knew it wasn't what I was supposed to do. And I finally, after all those years, came to terms with that. But it took me a while because, the part of me that wanted to be affirmed in whatever, that I'm worthy of that job because I have this piece of paper or whatever, definitely that definitely pulled at me for a long time.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're getting ready to start winding down here. One question that I always like to ask my guests is, do you have a favorite verse or scripture that you'd like to share?
I do, absolutely. Mine has always been, for as long as I can remember, Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose.
Mm,
Because God does work for good in all situations if we allow him to.
yes, he does. Thank you. Yes, that's such a something that we need to be reminded of, especially in today's world, that God is working good even in all of the evil that it seems like is just permeating from everywhere. There's so much good in there if we just open our eyes and look for it. So, yes, thank you.
That's right.
Thank you so much. I've got listeners that are probably going, okay, how do I find this gal in case I want to be a VA or I want to get your directory or whatever. So where can people find you?
It is at Alyssa Avant and Company.com. And you'll probably have to spell it out because my name is not pronounced the way it sounds. So it's kind of strange. But yeah, and then I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and just my name is my handle on both of those platforms. And so any of those places is a good place to connect with me.
Okay, great. And I will put both of those links in the show notes. I will also put a link to register for the masterclass so they can come back and
Great.
do some more. So, any last thoughts before we sign off today?
No, I don't guess so. Just keep thinking about these ways that you can do this and join us for the masterclass because I can share so much more about how to make that relationship beneficial to you if you choose to hire a VA.
Perfect. I can't wait to have that conversation with you. I am
So
so grateful to have had this conversation with you today. It was just wonderful to get together. I think you are providing an amazing service that so many people need in the world, and it's my pleasure to be able to share that with my listeners today. So thank you for coming, and I'm going to look forward to that conversation in the near future.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So, did you start a list? I'll bet you have a whole bunch of ideas of where you could use someone to come in and help you out, whether it's in your business, your home, your church, nonprofit, whatever it is. I know that there's somewhere that you could use some help. So I hope that you will think about connecting with Alicia and getting some of that help potentially. And as we talked about in the show, I hope that you will come back and listen to the master class that is on March 25th at 11 o'clock Central Time. I will put a link to register in the show notes, and we would love to have you come and join us for that free 1 hour session. You'll be able to get any questions you have answered and just learn more about how that might work and what the benefits are. And I think you'll really enjoy the rest of that conversation. So thank you so much for stopping by today. I hope you found this useful. And if you did, I hope that you'll invite a friend to listen to this episode and invite them to the mastermind with you. I think that would be wonderful. I just want to thank you for stopping by today. I know how valuable your time is, and I just so appreciate that you stop by and listen to Longing for More. And I want to apologize for the sound quality today. I had several challenges, and we're working on getting those fixed, so I promise next time will be better. So until next time, I just pray that you will stay safe, be blessed, and live your more.